When it comes to superhero animated TV shows, there is everything else, and then there's Batman, the animated series. The reputation of this show is so permanent in our culture that even after 30 years from its original run, people are still creating documentaries, articles, podcasts, ranking lists, and video essays about a cartoon TV series made for kids. Considering all the content that has spawned as a result of this show, I came across a problem when I decided to make a video about it. What could I possibly say that had not been already said? How could I give something new to the people that already know everything about it? I sat down to rewatch the series for this video and the answer came to me. It was something so simple, yet so unique, that I couldn't pass the chance to tell you all why I love Batman, the animated series. I love Batman. This shouldn't be a secret to anybody who has watched my videos before, and the truth is, I've loved Batman for as long as I can remember. My first memory of The Dark Knight is watching reruns of the Batman TV show of the 1960s. For 20 minutes every day, I would get transported into a colorful world of adventure and excitement. I was marveled at the countless gadgets and the Batmobile, while the colorful cast of villains and deadly traps would make me worry for the fate of the dynamic duo. I was 4 years old and I can't remember if I asked for this bat costume or if my parents gave it to me. Only one thing was clear: I had barely begun to exist, and I was already under the shadow of the bat. As a kid who grew up in the 90s, television was my main source of entertainment. After the Adam West TV series, I remember watching the Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher Batman movies, all of them on television because I was much too young to see them in theaters. Almost everybody who was a kid in the 90s has fond memories of watching Batman the animated series, of going home after school and turning on the TV to watch the show. But I said almost everybody, because I don't remember that happening to me. Batman the Animated Series started its broadcast in 1992 and ended in 1995. After the success of Tim Burton's first Batman movie, Warner Brothers decided to greenlight a Batman animated series produced by artists Eric Radomski and Bruce Timm. Eric and Bruce had a clear idea of the kind of Batman show they wanted to make. They combined the dark aesthetics of Tim Burton's Batman with the simplified art style of the 1940s Superman cartoons, creating a dark atmosphere that was quite fitting for the Batman mythos. Many talented people became the creative team of the animated series, and all of them worked with only one purpose: to create the best version of Batman that they could make. Alan Burnett and Paul Dini joined the team as writers, while Shirley Walker became the composer of the show and took several pupils under her wing. Andrea Romano was the voice director for the series, and she was responsible for casting Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. and dozens of other amazing actors. And they are just the tip of the iceberg. The amount of talented and creative people involved in the show is quite large, and all of them contributed to the enormous success of the show. The first episode of Batman the Animated Series was aired on September 5, 1992, and after that day, nothing was ever the same. American animation and the Batman mythos in general were changed forever. It was as if lightning had struck and transformed the landscape upon its touch. In 1993, Batman became the first superhero animated show to win a Primetime Emmy Award for the episode Robin's Reckoning. The audience just couldn't get enough of Batman, and Warner released a ridiculous amount of merchandise for the show, from the traditional action figures and Happy Meal toys to the most unusual items like toothbrushes, shampoo, and lip balms. Oddly enough, it is the merchandise of Batman the Animated Series that marked my childhood more than anything else. A coloring book about the show was my introduction to the art style of Bruce Timm, and I can also remember spending hours playing the adventures of Batman and Robin on the Sega Genesis. Even though I was never able to get past the first level, I remember the excitement I felt when the logo of the game showed up on the screen, inviting me to experience what it was like to be Batman. I was fascinated by the images of Arkham Asylum and the Joker on the opening of the game, I was thrilled controlling Batman and Robin, making them run and jump across Gotham, and fighting hordes of clowns to reach the first boss of the game. That was the hardest challenge for 10-year-old me, who was utterly excited when I eventually discovered that the boss inside the machine was Harley Quinn. Even getting a game over was fun, as you would get to see Mr. Freeze. I had a small collection of action figures, 1 Batman, 1 Robin, 1 Riddler, and 3 Jokers. Most of them have been lost to time, and only the Batman and 1 of the Jokers are still with me. I also completed a jigsaw puzzle of the Batman and Robin movie, which was illustrated in the style of the animated series. Someone got me that puzzle framed, and I still have it up on the wall of my studio as a reminder of the good times I had when I was younger. As I grew up and became a teenager, I mostly forgot about Batman until 2008, when I watched The Dark Knight. That movie got me back into Batman like never before, introducing me to graphic novels and the world of modern Batman comics. Around that time, a new Batman video game was announced, and I learned that the voice actors for Batman, Joker, and Harley Quinn were the same people from the animated series. Not only that, the game was written by Paul Dini, one of the main writers for the show. I decided that until the game was released, I would watch Batman the animated series. And this is when everything changed. As a kid, I watched a few episodes of the show, but until then I couldn't remember anything other than the opening of the series. That first minute of each episode was the one thing that I never forgot. And when I played the first episode, that intro instantly transported me to a different time, a different world, a place that made you believe in Gotham, a reality where the Dark Knight could exist. I was 17 years old now, and I was finally old enough to appreciate the outstanding work that went into the creation of the show. As I made my way through the series, I tried to understand what was that element that made the series so good, and it wasn't until I watched all 85 episodes that I finally found the answer. The reason why Batman the animated series works is everything. You can look at any area of the show and you will find one thing only: a dedicated effort to create the most unique Batman series. In the art department, for instance, they went for a series that could feel very modern and very old at the same time. Advanced technology like the Batcomputer and the Batmobile coexisted in a world of black and white television and Art Deco design, which was popular in the 1940s. The series coined the term Dark Deco, referencing to the combination of Art Deco illustrations on black paper, a concept that was so transgressive and unusual in animation, but one that contributed to the perfectly dark atmosphere of the show. On the animation department, the show emphasized simplicity on the character designs. Instead of imitating the detailed art of the comics, they used simple shapes and lines that were easy to animate in order to convey movement and action in the best way possible, and in doing so, they created an iconic look that is beloved around the world. The voice acting is one of the strongest assets of the series, with a cast of mostly stage actors. This added an enormous depth to the performances of the actors, which in turn gave the characters a real, believable personality.
I just want all the scumbuckets and dirtbags in this town to know they better lay low, cause Bullock's back and ready to kick butt.
Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill started their careers as Batman and Joker with this series, and their work was so iconic that they continued voicing the characters 25 years after the show ended.
Oh, very funny. 1,000,000 laughs.
The two of them and many other actors in the series are often called the definitive voices for these characters.
I deserve this award.
The music on this show was different from anything that had come before. Unlike the majority of animated shows, Batman had a full orchestra and every episode had a different score, one that not only goes along with the action, but also reflects the themes and ideas of each episode, adding emotional gravitas to the stories by giving every character their own particular soundtrack. But perhaps the biggest strength of the series was the writing. This was not just a kids' show. This was something that adults would also enjoy, and that combination was achieved thanks to a good writing team that balanced the fun adventures with character-driven stories. The writers had a clear guide of how to approach each episode and how to make best use of the characters. This was one of the first series to introduce the concept of sympathetic villains to the mainstream media by revealing the tragic nature of the Batman enemies. The best example of this being Mr. Freeze on the Emmy Award-winning episode Heart of Ice. But you could also see that on characters like Two-Face, Harley Quinn, Baby Doll, and even the Penguin. The writers of this show gave these characters an emotional depth that they never had before. You wanted to see these episodes not only to watch the heroes, but also because you were invested in the villain's story. Of course, there was also the more traditional evil enemy, the unsympathetic villain like the Joker and Scarecrow, both of which have some of the best episodes of the series, as they provide a great contrast and challenge for the Batman. But without a doubt, the star of the series was Batman. He was dark but never brutal. This Batman didn't rely on violence to solve problems. He used his mind and gadgets to prevent conflict. He was compassionate, smart, and resourceful. He was the Dark Knight detective. But he was also Bruce Wayne, the man behind the Bat, the father to Dick Grayson, the son to Alfred Pennyworth, the friend to Harvey Dent. This series succeeded in showcasing sides of Batman that no other movie or series has, even to this day. Batman the Animated Series is, simply put, the best Batman ever. It took all the elements from the extensive history of Batman and made them work. The art style of the 1940s, the sci-fi technology from the 1950s and 60s, the best Batman stories from the 1970s, and the darkness of the 1980s. The combination of all these elements is what makes this series a timeless masterpiece. And all this just to say that I fell deeply in love with this version of Batman. How could I not have seen it before? How could it have taken me so long to find out about it? I started watching and re-watching almost every episode of the series, searching information about the show on the internet, and learning everything I could about it. Thanks to the show, I became fascinated by film noir movies and German expressionism, both of which worked as visual inspirations for the show. The animated series also introduced me to the best era in the Batman comics, the Bronze Age. The writers of the show took inspiration and adapted some of the classic Batman stories that had come before, specifically those that happened in the Bronze Age, between 1970 and 1986, those stories that defined Batman as the Dark Knight detective. Through the episodes The Demon's Quest and Appointment in Crime Alley, I learned about Denny O'Neil, the best Batman writer, and through other episodes like The Laughing Fish and The Strange Secret of Bruce Wayne, I learned about Steve Englehart and the best Batman story from the Bronze Age, Strange Apparitions. The animated series encouraged me to take a look at more classic stories and made me appreciate the history of Batman even more. Before I started making videos, I was already very passionate about sharing this love for Batman with the world, and in that effort, I started contributing to the DC Comics Wiki as well as the Animated Series Wiki. The latter was mostly developed by me, and I still feel a strong connection to it, although I'm no longer a very active editor. I put hours of my life into those projects, just to share my passion for Batman with other people, and it was that same passion that made me start a YouTube channel, where maybe, just maybe, I could reach even more people. Now, 4 years later, I find myself making a video about the Batman show that started everything for me. My journey has come full circle, and there is but one important lesson from all this. Batman the Animated Series is a show that defined Batman for an entire generation, a series that captivated the hearts and imagination of millions of people around the world, and one that has endured the test of time. But on a personal level, Batman the Animated Series taught me that if you have a vision and you put in enough love and passion, those feelings will resonate with the audience, and that's something I hope to achieve in my small corner of the internet with Salazar Knight, a channel that was created out of passion and love for Batman. Thank you so much for watching this video. It was a real challenge to create this one, and I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. And especially if you're not a fan of the animated series, thanks for sticking around until the end. If you want to support and help me make more videos, well, I don't have a Patreon, so the best way to help me out is by sharing the video around, liking and commenting. You can always find me on Twitter at Salazar Knight for updates about upcoming videos. Friends, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.